action. Welcome. Let's talk Broncos. Bree Maestas, Joey Richards, Zach Seegers has abandoned us once again. How are you this evening?
I mean, it's getting ridiculous at this point. Someone needs to point it out. Someone needs to point it out. I don't know if it would be you or me, but like I said, somebody needs to point it out. It's getting ridiculous. Where is Zach Seegers? We don't know what he's doing. We have no clue. Bree and I are left in the dark. We're here on Let's Talk Broncos. I'm obviously lying. Zach's working.
Yeah, Zach has a job and it's important, so we don't want to give him too much crap, I guess.
No, none of that matters. None of it matters. I don't care at all. Zach, where are you? We need you on the podcast, brother.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same without you. Anyways, we'll try to get it done. Wait for people to pop in there. If you're watching over on Twitter, join us over on YouTube. You can search Let's Talk Broncos. Hop in the chat. Tonight's a bold prediction, score predictions, what to watch for the Broncos versus the Falcons on Sunday. So if you want to get your predictions in, we're all ears. All you got to do is jump on over and send those over to us. And if you don't have any, that's fine too. Keep watching with us. We'll be sure to keep it interesting for you. But Joey, there's a couple of storylines coming into Sunday, but I do just want to briefly touch base. I know you were unavailable because you were outside of the Denver area. You were enjoying a little bit of a vacation there. Heartbreaking or hopeful following that Chiefs loss?
Okay, so I was in Las Vegas. I was sitting there watching that game in the sports book where there just happened to be many of Chiefs fans. Who would have thought Chiefs fans, bandwagon fans, I might add, all over the place. I was talking to this one dude next to me. He's talking about the only reason the Broncos are in this game. Well, you got to realize that tackle's hurt, and then the other. But we're all dealing with injuries. I don't want to hear I don't want to hear about it. I want to talk about it. It's exactly what I said. I said, well, yeah, the Broncos have some injuries too, to that guy. So I was cheering hard. I was kind of a little in your face about the whole situation. Whenever the Broncos made a big play, I stood up, made sure that Broncos fans had representation at this specific sportsbook in Las Vegas. I had to. I'm very much like you get pissed off at others. So now, no matter what happens, the Broncos, I'm going crazy. So, With that being said, I left very disappointed at the end because I made a lot of noise. I didn't have a lot to back it up with at the end. It didn't make sense. It wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. But at the end of the day, after I had left there and I hopped on the slot machine for like maybe 5 minutes, lost all that money, I started to try to think of the positives in my life, right? And it was that the Broncos, you know what? They belong. It was better than what I thought right after. They belong. They were going in there against an undefeated Chiefs team with the refs, I might add, with the refs. And you know what? They should have won. They should have won. If they just execute on a kick, this is like 99th percentile of the Broncos win game. So I came out of that feeling maybe a little better than most people did right after the game because I just figured the Broncos belong. They're in a good spot, and it's not really about this year anyways. It's about the future. And Bo Nix just had a really good game. I thought Sean Payton had a really good game, giving the ball to Marvin Mims out of the backfield. Audric Estime starting at running back and getting a lot of carries. Like I felt positive about the young Broncos, which led me to believe, hey, the Broncos next year, that's where I'm putting my chips on the table. That's when I'm saying the Broncos are a playoff team.
And I think that is the hopeful sentiment around Broncos country. So I'm glad that you shared that. I'm sorry that you had to cash some checks that your mouth couldn't simply because the Broncos weren't able to execute that. Still heartbreaking, still frustrating. I had people asking me today, what gives? I'm like, I don't know. Do you want the long or the short of it? And at the end of the day, it's not a simple play, but it is frustrating to continue to have to sort of hang your head after a game like that. But not big on moral victories this week, especially against the Chiefs. But the Falcons were also dealing with a little bit of a last-minute upset there against the New Orleans Saints. So could they also be in a feisty mood moving forward? What to watch for, obviously, right off of the bat is going to be the injury reports for the Broncos and the Falcons. Joey, I know you said the Broncos, they have their injuries. They're dealing with their stuff too, but it's relatively clean here.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot to note or noteworthy outside of Locke. Reynolds is returning from IR, which is promising, back on track to be activated. Drew Sanders, DTY, Allen, and Brandon Jones was on a bit of a rest day, but he is dealing with something, a little bit of an elbow issue. So that will be something you'll want to watch moving forward. But the Falcons are kind of banged up here. Lengthy injury report includes Drake London, Tyler Algier, and Kirk Cousins. Kirk's got like a whole right side of his body thing going on. So we'll see how that affects his throwing arm. Didn't have the best showing against the Saints, but the Falcons defense has sort of found a rhythm in this cycle, in this season. I feel like it puts the Broncos and the Falcons in this evenly matched up, like, okay, counterpoint offenses and defenses are sort of around the same spot. My first question to you, and you can also comment on the injury report as well, but I want to know if you think this is the most even matchup for these two teams of the season. Like, this one feels like very balanced.
Yeah, I think the Falcons are that. I mean, especially their offense. Like when Kirk and everything's clicking, and Drake London. You just mentioned these guys on the injury report, so that's substantial. Bree, do you have the information? Are these guys like DNPs in practice right now, or are they just on the report? Do you know?
What was that again?
I was asking, and it's fine if you don't. I'll look it up real quick. But do you know if these guys you just listed, Algier, Kirk Cousins, Drake London, are they DNPs on the injury report, or are they just
No, limited to full participant? There's not a
Okay.
designation as far as, they like all of them are intended to play on Sunday. I didn't see a whole lot of DNPs outside of that, but like Kirk's gonna play, Drake's gonna play. I really don't see that being an issue. But I did find it still notable.
It is notable for sure. You have to note it when these guys are on there. But yeah, I mean, when the Falcons' offense is clicking, Bree, it's good. Like Drake London's a good wide receiver. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. You got Bijan Robinson, who's a monster in the backfield. They just have a pretty good offense out there. Kyle Pitts, that's a guy everyone has been hating on this entire going back to the start of last year, maybe even before then. And Kyle Pitts has had kind of an explosive year. It's not like a ton of targets or a ton of catches, but it's a lot of yards because it's coming in explosive plays. He mossed somebody this last week. So when their offense is clicking, it's really good. You brought up their defense, and I totally understand your standpoint, Bree, where it's, hey, this defense is kind of clicking lately. I'm kind of a hater of this defense, Bree. I think a lot of this is, hey, Jesse Bates making a big play here or there, and it's covering our eyes versus what's actually happening for this Falcons defense. I don't think it's very good.
Not a whole lot of pressures or sacks. Like, what is the defense consisted of?
Who knows, Bree? That's my point. we don't know. It consists of Jesse Bates because their defense isn't very good to me. It's not very good to me. I think I'll get into it in my bold, but my bold's going to be an offensive player playing really good versus Falcons defense this next week. A guy I might think is in a rhythm. So I'm feeling pretty good about this next game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's very easy to look at defensive rankings and think that there is an ability to kind of match those up. But when you look at the Broncos defense, which is my next question to you, with Kirk Cousins dealing with what he's dealing with and having a very rough go at it against the Saints, is he prepared to face a defense like the Broncos where you can tell where their success is coming from? And it's not a lot of flukes or, I guess, lucky circumstances.
Yeah. So wait 1 second. Can you repeat the lucky circumstances part?
Right. Well, I'm just saying, like, the Broncos aren't full of like this, but what's to show for it defenses. I mean,
Yeah, you're right.
There's a lot of substance to the Denver Broncos defense.
So far, you're absolutely right. Like, it's not lucky circumstances. You're seeing high pressure rates because the Broncos are blitzing a ton. Um, and you're seeing really good coverage in your man-to-man type deal that they're running a lot back there is because Riley Moss and Patrick Surtain and Jaquan McMillan, these guys are just really good corners. I don't think any of it is luck at all. I think the Broncos defense is just really good. Is it, Bree? Because, happens every year. Every year since the Vic Fangio times where they're trying to come up with a new nickname to kind of do a Broncos no-fly zone 2.0 deal. Is it that good? No. I think we need to throw that out the window. But is it a good defense? A defense that, if you have a competent offense, can carry you to a playoffs? I think so. That's kind of where I stand on this defense right now.
Yeah, I think that your definition is what it should be, right? If you don't have the offense to match up with that, we saw what happens, especially with the Broncos early this season, is that you're not going to win the games that you're supposed to. So even if your defense is struggling, which they also were, the team itself was sort of off to a rocky start. It was a little creaky, but they've all found their stride. And I think as the offense continues to really ramp up there, you're going to see that just pay the dividends with having a defense that's able to hold other teams to so few points and really handcuff a lot of other quarterbacks. You'll all have to forgive me. I'm battling what seems to be a head thing going on, migraine and sinuses and all that stuff. So if I sneeze or if I make a funny face, bear with me. I'm in a little bit of pain. It brings me to my next point, and I'm so glad that Jordan Davis brought it up here. I think it was going to be my bold prediction, but I'm going to change it just so we can talk about this point. Jordan Davis said it's an interesting matchup between Bo Nix and Justin Simmons. Obviously, Jay Sims returning to Denver, saying he'll always be a Bronco, but right now he's a Falcon, looking to get his team their 7th win. I was going to claim that Jay gets his interception against his former team because he's just so good at that. You can talk about Bo Nix and his ability to sort of manipulate defenders, but Justin Simmons is the penultimate individual who I think could see through that, like his strategy and the way his mind works and the way that he puts himself on the field to bait quarterbacks to throw exactly where he wants them to throw so that he can be successful in picking off the ball. Like, that's why I think that's such a good, bold prediction. But it is going to be an interesting matchup, right? I think it'll be emotional, first and foremost, for Broncos country, because it's really frustrating to see him on another team. But it'll be really frustrating, too, if he's able to be a complete disaster-provoking member of that secondary by taking away any sort of air game that the Broncos want to have. Joey, do you see him throwing a wrench in the Broncos' plans on Sunday?
I mean, it's very possible. I am a believer. I really am a believer in these revenge games. I know I am. I mean, how many times does it have to happen until we're like, yeah, you know what? That's maybe a thing. If the Broncos go out there and they light up the Falcons defense, it's going to be the Broncos kind of revenge deal on the Falcons. But how many, or Justin Simmons, really, even though there's really no revenge there. Justin Simmons was a fantastic Bronco. He didn't leave. The Broncos cut him. But I am a believer in it. I think that's possible. Justin Simmons just has his best game of the year against his former team. I've seen it a million times now. So it's possible. It is possible. It is possible. I just don't know if this Falcons defense is good enough to stop the Broncos offense from doing kind of what they want to do. I think the Broncos offense have kind of found themselves in a rhythm, Bree, or they're getting better, at least I would say. Maybe not a rhythm. Maybe I'm stretching it too far, but to a point where they're getting to a point where this offense is like a legit thing. The Chiefs defense is phenomenal. It's really good. Spags back there calling plays. Like, the players they have, McDuffie is a baller. They just have players on their defense, and their defense has been good this entire year. The Broncos looked pretty good against it. They did. The Broncos offense and Bo Nix and what they have going on, they looked pretty good. So, yeah, that's going to be my bold prediction, Brie. Can I get in my bold? Do you mind? All right, cool. I'll get into my bold.
I
My
was
bold.
muted. Yes, go ahead.
You're lucky you're not Zach. I would have sit there like, yeah. No, but my bold. So here, because of everything I just said, I'm predicting Bo Nix to have a monster game this week. I think he's gonna have the most passing yards he's had of any game he's had so far this year. I think he's gonna have a 300-yard performance. I'll throw 2 touchdowns on there too, just as a sweetener of the pot. I think the Broncos offense is finding a rhythm. Like I said, I think this Falcons defense isn't very great. The Broncos have dropped 2 in a row to really good teams. The Ravens, that one was like they just got their teeth kicked in. This Chiefs game, they should have won. Chiefs game in particular, this feels like a perfect time to have a bounce back type performance. And I think it happens with the offense continuing to improve like they have this whole year against not a great defense in the Atlanta Falcons. So I'm going Bo Nix 300 yards, and I'll just throw on 2 touchdowns. It might even be higher than that.
Yeah, 300 yards is a lot for me, which is why I'm kind of leaning on taking that bet, because 300 yards is, I was going to go 2 touchdowns too. Solidified in my head. So you throwing that on there doesn't make it too bold for my blood. It's the yards. Yeah, so I have to take that bet, Joey. Right? That means that I got it right.
Yeah, that means you're taking it. That means you disagree with me.
I disagree with you. I think it'll be something though. It'll come in at like 278 or 283 or whatever, and just completely hurt your feelings because there'll be like a dropped long ball. I'm sorry to tell you, but that is the way in which the Broncos fate kind of deals with this offense. So I don't think you're far off. I just think it's a little too rich for me. I think Zach would probably agree as well. The touchdowns I'm not worried about. Not at home.
Yeah, the touchdown should happen. And again, I'm even saying this is passing yards. So no rushing yards included in here. I think he has 300 passing yards this next game. The main thing here is Bo Nix. There was a lot of people this offseason, and it made sense looking at his Oregon film a little bit, where it was Bo Nix is afraid to pass down the field. That's been completely disproven this year. He hasn't been afraid to pass down the field. He's throwing a lot down the field. He's just not connecting on it a ton right now. It's been bad. This last game, you kind of saw it connect with that Cortland Sutton route where he just destroyed McDuffie. And I forget who said that. I think it was Atomic. Shout out to Atomic. On one, it was a perfect pitch and catch on like a 3rd and 1, I believe it was. Third and short for sure, where they just went over the top. Sutton beat his guy down the field, and it was a perfect pitch and catch for a touchdown. Just more of those connections, and you're going to start to see Bo Nix's passing yards increase dramatically, and the offensive production increase dramatically. It's throws that really aren't that difficult too. When I'm evaluating quarterbacks in the draft, I don't put a lot of stock in connecting on a 9 route or a fly route straight down the field, because you're just throwing it to a spot. You're not really reading much. You might have to look over this way and come this way to throw a safety off and throw it over deep, but you're throwing to a spot down the field. This is an easy throw. It's just the Broncos haven't been able to connect on it much. I'm just waiting for it to happen, and I think it will over time. I'm pretty optimistic about Bo Nix right now.
Well, and I love the optimism. I think it's coming along slowly enough to give me some pause. But what hasn't been is with Devon Bailey back. He gets his first career touchdown last week, which I've been waiting for it, right? Clamoring for it, putting it in my bold predictions, putting money on it. It happens last week, and I think that that's something that could continue to grow. And if that catches fire, I think that really gives Bo an interesting weapon moving forward and into the future, because it will open up more yards for him as well. And I think that's where, if you see that kind of start to ignite here on Sunday against the Falcons, that could really help out your bold prediction there. It's what I'm hoping for that will happen, but I think that if I put too much into it emotionally, that I could just end up being burned, or watching individuals drop more passes, and it would just frustrate me beyond belief. So I like your bold prediction. We'll get Zach's input in off camera so that we have all of our predictions ranked accordingly. But Joey, I think you're in the running now. I think you've now surpassed the leaderboard.
I did. Just so everyone knows, it's Zach was giving me shit. It was before this last week where Sutton eclipsed 100 yards. I predicted that, Joey Richards. You can find me at LTB Joey _Joey. I got that right. So now I'm above Zach and Brie. Brie, I am pretty confident Zach's going to try to steal this one for me again. We're going to find out at the end of the year this weird in between the lines rule that we didn't know about at the beginning. It's happened too many times to think that it won't happen again. We had to go a year after our first bold predictions year until I was finally crowned the winner. We don't expect anything different nowadays. We don't.
I think you need to take your tinfoil hat off, Joey, and just for the one time thing that Zach doesn't have it out for you. Not this time, I don't think. Not this year. I don't think he'd replay.
Have you seen the score predictions rankings? What are we talking about?
I don't know. I fell so far down those rankings. There's no ability for me to come back. So we're gonna act like
you have a guy that hasn't got a single game right, middle of the pack. So that's how we know that we don't know what's happening on there. The math isn't mathing. We don't know. We don't have any clue what's happening.
We call that Zach math here. It is what it is because he has, when people speak with such great confidence, you got to let it roll, because what are you going to come back with? He'll just end up deleting us from existence. So neither of us need that. Joey, love your bold. We'll get his answer. Let's do Zach's bold since he's not here to stick up for himself. The Denver Broncos sacked Kirk Cousins 4 or more times. So Cousins hasn't been sacked more than 4 times in any game this season. And he's only been sacked 4 times once in his career, ? That game went into overtime. So I don't know how I don't love this one, right? Like, I agree with it. I got to fade it. I think that you got Benito and Cooper absolutely mauling individuals. Hey, Joey, here's a question for you. And then this will tell me exactly what I need to know to answer this. For the Falcons defense, or the Falcons offensive line, they a bunch of holding SOBs like the Chiefs are. Are they gonna be able to slow down Benito and Cooper by just holding them? Because if that's what's happening, then yeah, that won't happen. You got any insight there?
Listen, nobody's like the Chiefs. I wish I could compare somebody to the Chiefs, Brie. There's no way I can compare anybody to the Chiefs with their right tackle, Jawan Taylor, going 5-star every single play. You could literally call it every single play. It's just I can't compare anybody to them. So the Falcons, no. I don't think the refs are wearing like red and black for this game. So I don't think so. I mean, just looking at their players, I don't have any in the stats off the top of my head. They have pretty good players across their offensive line. Jake Matthews has been a starter for a long time. Caleb McGarry is a player. Chris Lindstrom is a player. I don't think it's terrible. If someone has stats in the chat, let us know, and I'll be happy to throw them up on how the Falcons offensive line is doing. But for this year, Bree, it really hasn't mattered for the Broncos, because what they're doing is bringing manufactured blitzes. That's how they're getting a ton of pressure with their edge rushers playing well, too. You saw it with Nick Benito this last week. He was phenomenal. But they've been getting pressure with manufactured blitzes, confusing offensive linemen more than really telling us how good these guys are in one-on-one blocking situations or anything like that. They've been getting pressure with linebackers and DBs, which has been opening up defensive tackles or opening up edge rushers. It's been different than just the Vic Fangio style, which we have all been there, is, hey, how do we get the maximum amount of pressure only bringing 4? It's a little different. The Broncos defense is blitzing at a high rate this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it bodes well. It bodes. Boswell. Sorry, I got distracted. I'm trying to share the link over in the Twitter sphere. Like the stream while you're in here, a bunch of freeloaders. I would absolutely love it if you would like the stream. Zach Seegers has made it. Like and comment, share your support for the show. Thank you. And as always, thank you very much, Zach Seegers, for finally retweeting the pod. Don't worry, it's on brand and on time for when you normally retweet the pod, even when you're on it. So we appreciate you. And we miss you.
It's just, when Zach is off these shows, it's like it's like the floodgates open on just.
I know it's unfair. All of it is simply because he's not here to be like and say something while his mic is muted. So it just
Zach's just a nicer person than you or I. Like Zach, when I miss a show, Zach will spend like the little like intro part, like, oh, Joey didn't make it, whatever. It's done after that. It's dead. When Zach misses, it's brought up every 5 minutes. It's like it's a paid advertisement on why Zach's not here.
I know, and it's just so funny. I can't stop.
He's a great guy. Zach's amazing. I got to throw that out there. He's one of my good buds. Hang out with him outside of this podcast, as does Bree. Like, we are actual friends on here, so we're allowed to joke like this.
I thought you were saying, like, yeah, hang out with Zach Seegers outside of this podcast. You'll enjoy yourself. And I was like, please don't put that kind of pressure on Zach. I don't think he has the time. But either way, that was my own, like, I got a little scared there for a second. Yeah, I definitely think Kirk Cousins gets sacked 4 times. I think it's bold, but I absolutely think it'll happen. Joey, did you bold prediction?
What was that? Can you repeat that? You just cut a little bit there.
That's so annoying. Do you agree with Zach's bold prediction or not?
I disagree. I'm in the same boat as you, and for all the reasons you said. I'm in agreement with you. I think the Broncos defense is going to get after it.
Yeah, absolutely. They better. Jordan Davis has a bold prediction for us. Thanks, Jordan. My bold prediction is that Estime will have 100+ rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. The Falcons haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher all season. And he gave us a reason why. Jordan, welcome to Let's Talk Broncos. You're playing the game correctly. The 2 rushing touchdowns makes this extremely bold. And that's why I fuck with this, because that is going to be kind of what turns the table here for the Broncos. I don't know if they're going to be scoring 2 touchdowns from Nix and 2 touchdowns from Audric Estime. So that becomes way too bold for where my head was at. But I don't hate it. I just don't think there will be an opportunity where, if that is in range, that Bo isn't just taking it in himself. You know, he's got those fancy feet. He's real super quick. I could see it being 2 rushing touchdowns from the team. And so if you think Estime will have both rushing touchdowns, then I'm going to go ahead and take that bet, because I think it's too rich for me. Joey.
Yeah, so this one is good because I think Estime is going to start to see a heavier load. You saw this last week, right? Estime was their number 1 back in carries, and it was by a significant margin. It really feels like the Broncos are starting to move Javonte Williams in a similar role into which Samaje Perine was last year, where it's, you're such a great blocker, we need you out there in comparison to the rest of these guys. And you're also a good receiver. Or good check down guy, at least. So we need you out there on those situations. Estime, you can tell the Broncos are just like, maybe he's a better runner of the football, though. So in situations where it's, I want to give the running back the ball, is Audric Estime is out there. He needs to hold on to the ball. That was a big thing when they were running it, trying to get in position for that field goal. It freaked me out. I was like, oh my God, Estime's out there. Estime's out there. Estime's out there. But held on the ball, and he played good this last game. So I don't hate it. It's the 2 touchdowns is exactly why I'm going to take you up on this. It's just too high for me. The 100 yards is a bold prediction to me. If I just said Audric Estime is having 100 yards this game, it would have counted as a bold prediction. The 2 touchdowns makes it where it's like, yeah, if I were to put money on this, I am putting money on it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I feel bad now. Zach said the slander is insane. It's all out of love. If we didn't care about you, we just wouldn't talk about you. Much like when I'm off the show and you don't even mention why. I'm not there, but I digress.
This isn't true.
I can't stop. I can't stop. Okay.
I've come on here a trillion times. Whenever you're not on this show, I say you're fired. You're off the show. You've been kicked off for whatever reason. It's every time.
It usually is that reason, or I'm on a mental health watch. Lukester, who, hi Luke. How many yards will Bijan Robinson rush for, and how many passing touchdowns will Bo Nix have? I'm going 2 passing touchdowns for Bo. And the I don't want Bijan Robinson to have a whole ton of yards, although I do have him in one of my fantasy leagues. So I am in pain. I'm in a glass case of emotion. Joey, how many yards do you think Bijan gets this Sunday?
Bijan, I'm going to play it just safe, right? It's like when I usually pick 28 to 21 in a football game or something like that. I'm going to say he has 80 yards rushing.
Okay, I go under. I'm going under. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
Oh, Luke, I don't know, man. Fantasy football is just kicking my butt. I got injuries and IRs all over the place. I don't know what to do either. Start him, because if he goes off and you don't want him on your bench, you know what I mean?
That's the key. I play everybody when I play the Broncos, because it's like, hey, if I lose this fantasy game, but the Broncos win, I'm happy, right? If my fantasy team sucks, or vice versa, I'm happy too. It's whatever the case may be. I just play both hands. That's what I try to do.
They'll probably have to lean on him a lot too if the Broncos secondary is able to wipe out anything Kirk tries to put through the air. I could see the Falcons trying to just win the time of possession here, and try to just stretch the drives with a run game. Whether or not they'll get that off, I'm not sure. Phil and Zach Seegers is saying Javonte Williams will score a touchdown on Sunday if he touches the ball. Perhaps you've seen the Broncos kind of shy away from that. You're throwing everybody else in the backfield at this point, which is fun to see. I don't know what it means for Javonte Williams moving forward. Hopefully that was just a minor lull in his role here the rest of this season. I guess I should give my bold prediction so we can get into the meat of the rest of the show. I already told you I was going to do a Justin Simmons pick, but I'm going to say that Kirk Cousins gets a double dose of frustration, unable to throw for a touchdown in a second game in a row. Honestly, I know it's super bold. He just came off a really terrible performance against the Saints, wasn't able to throw for a touchdown. They lost, but I think that's a great opportunity to keep that ball rolling, especially against this Denver Broncos defense. And it may come because Bijan Robinson is able to run in those touchdowns there. So I'm going no touchdowns for Kirk Cousins, which how could that bite me? How could that bite me in the face at all? I'm a huge Kirk Cousins fan. But I want him to suffer.
Fair enough, Bree. And this has happened twice this season, right? Both times against the Saints, which is super interesting. What are they doing? That's something that the Broncos may, if I were a coach and I was just looking at the straight box score stats and I'm like, Kirk has played bad against us 2 times, or played bad against the Saints 2 times. What are they doing against this Falcons offense to make it work? That's something I'm going to check after this podcast. Thanks for the bold prediction, Brie. But I will take you up on this. It is bold. Most of these games, he's throwing at least 1, if not 2, 3, or 4. So I will take you up on it. The Broncos defense is phenomenal. So it's not a bad bet. I'm not going to sit there and be like, Brie, you just got suckered into one that I'm going to win right now. It's going to increase my score. I'm not going to do that whole thing. But it's a good bet because of how good the Broncos defense is. It's just you're really trying to contain these guys. Shutting them down's tough a lot of the time. I have a hard time seeing Kirk go back-to-back weeks with just 0 touchdowns. So I'll take you up on it.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. At least you're not doing it intentionally just to be a dick. Like you could do that, and then that would just be poor character. And Joey, you're not about that. Zach, on the other hand, I don't know. I'm just kidding. Get your score predictions in, kids. It's time. It's that time of the evening. Joey, the Broncos are favored. They're home favorites against the 6-4 Falcons. I already kind of alluded earlier. I felt like they were maybe a little evenly matched. I think I'm now on the, you know what? Nobody evenly matches up with Bo Nix in this Denver Broncos defense. It's not happening. But the Falcons do lead the NFC South. It was 1.5, then it jumped to 2.5. It's back down to 1.5 now. The money line, the Broncos are favored at 135. The over under for the game is 44. I'm gonna give you Zach's score prediction first. He's saying Denver wins 24-17. I feel like that margin is a little too big for me. I went 23-20 Broncos. We have a couple of fill in Zach Seegers. It said 35-14.
Paul, by the way. Shout out to Paul.
This is Paul. Yeah, hello, Paul. Happy to see you. Atomic got a bold prediction late. Atomic, I'll get to you here in a second, my dude. Luke says 35-31 Broncos high offensive match. Damn, that's a lot of points. That is so many points. That's almost 20 points
this
over.
Would be a fun game, though.
Oh, wouldn't it? Especially, I'll be there. I'd love to see a little dice up here between Bo Nix and Kirk Cousins where they're just throwing bombs into the end zone. Like, that would be great. I foresee it maybe going the other way. But Michael Carmelini says Broncos 24, the Birds 16. I like that you qualified them as the Birds there, Mike, because whenever I see the Falcons logo, I say Ravens. And then I'm like, well, it doesn't really matter. They're all the Birds. So the Eagles, the Seahawks, I don't care. Just birds. Why are there so many of them? This is dumb. Samuel Castro said Falcons taste like chicken. No. Let's go Broncos win 30-17. I mean, maybe, probably more like a Cornish game hen, but because they're so
like
bird.
Chicken. So let's just
okay, no, let's dive. We're diving into this right now because I feel like it. They're birds of prey, so they're a lot more like their muscle fibers are going to be tighter and they're going to be gamier because they're eating all this other. Cornish game hens are going to taste
chicken.
They eat mammals. I bet you they taste terrible. Like they're going to be all.
No, once you put up,
don't eat a falcon.
I doubt it. I mean, I agree.
Once you put some ketchup on it, Joey?
I mean, just seasoning, whatever the case may be, it all tastes like all of it's different levels of chicken. Like this one's actual chicken. This one's a little different chicken. It's a little more different chicken. It's all chicken, though.
No, I don't, and I got to go do research about this because that's what I spend my time doing. I talk about football enough. I'm around it so much that I'm going to go research chicken. Atomic says 27-16 Broncos. Jordan, I don't know if I got yours or not. 35-17 Broncos. The chat is going full swing. Denver Broncos. Let's hope we do not wake up. Luke, I can't highlight that one, but you're missing out on the chat. I don't highlight all the comments over here, folks. I pick and choose, but sometimes they're really funny. Gourmet LTB. Yeah, we like to talk about food here. And kangaroos. Not related. Don't eat kangaroos. Joey, what's your score prediction? I didn't get yours yet.
Yeah, my score prediction, I'm going 28-24 Broncos. Like I said, I think Bo Nix is going to have a strong game, which leads to the Broncos. In my bold prediction, right, I chose Bo Nix. Stats leading to a good performance. So I have to go high points. 28-24. Broncos win this football game to me. Like I said at the beginning, I think it's a bounce back game for them. You lost to two teams, two of which you could make the argument it's probably the Chiefs, Lions, and Ravens. And we played two of those teams the last 2 weeks. It's the top three teams in the NFL, just completely, right? And you should have beat the Chiefs. So this is a bounce back game for the Broncos. Their offense looks better against a defense I think is a lot worse than the Chiefs. 28-24. Broncos win this football game to me.
It's interesting to me that you and I have smaller margins than Zach is predicting. That's something that's interesting to me. Samuel Castro, Frank's red hot sauce is one of the elite ones. Joey, favorite hot sauce before we, start rapping today?
I don't know. I like trying different ones. There's this breakfast place I go to in Denver, and they have a wall of hot sauces, and I try a different one every time. I like the local, just try something new, whatever it may be.
Hmm. Very interesting. Every time I go to those places and do those things, I end up burning myself because they have something like the bomb out there in the forefront, and I burn my tongue off. I don't need that in my life.
Yeah.
Berries anymore, like I don't have that adventurousness in me anymore. I'm all about does anyone have any Valentina or
Yes. Yeah, can we get to that? Before I end the show, I wanna hate on the people that go out there and pretend like they're just doing like the hot chip challenge when they go out there on a regular meal. I hate you. That's something we have to say right now. I like spicy foods, but the people that are like, yeah, I want 3 ghost peppers. Shut up. No, you don't. You're lying. And I just frankly, I don't believe you at all. So that's what my send off note. You're
I've never
lying.
I've never
You're sitting there
understood
in
it
a
either.
full sweat eating your food, telling me you love it. Stop it. I don't believe you for a second.
Yeah, I've never understood that. Like, I like spice, but I don't like to burn my face off. Like when your face is running and you just can't, like, you're coughing and you're turning red, and I do not understand it, but I like spice. Like, I
Yes.
listen, I know where I come from, but I don't need to hurt myself for my
And I
food.
like spice too, but these people pretend like they're doing like a YouTube challenge while they're eating their regular food, telling me they love it. Stop. Stop it.
Yeah, you're lying to yourself. Luke
You're
also has
all
a final
lying.
question. You're a college football guy here, Joey. We're obviously excited about CU. You can check out Let's Talk Buffs over on YouTube. You can follow them as well. The Let's Talk Buffs podcast is found over on Twitter. Follow them along. We don't have a CSU show
Please.
yet, but you know what? No hate there as well. Will both CSU and CU win their bowl games, Joey?
Ooh, this is tough. I don't know. I do not know.
I
Like
don't.
for
That feels like
CSU,
far.
it is hard because I don't know their opponent, one, and then two, for bowl games nowadays, you don't even know who's playing. Like
Mhm.
players on the team, the actual roster. What does it look like? Um, these teams like Horton, for example, on CSU, is he going to want to play in a game for a bowl? Like I don't know, or is he just going to say, "Hey, my health's more important. I need to go to the draft." These are questions you need to have answered. I imagine like Shiloh and Travis and Shador playing in their bowl game, or just because they it, Prime means so much to them, right? And I think a win for Prime in a bowl game would be massive. Um, but I would need to see opponent, and I would need to see the rosters before I picked a game. So I don't know.
Yeah, come back to us when it's time, Luke. We'll be happy to chat or join them over on Let's Talk Buffs so that you can ask all your Buffs questions. I'm sure they'll talk about CSU too if you ask nicely, but I don't know. I don't run that side. I like to watch CU and not be too central focused on everything that's going on. Yeah, if you didn't check out Monday's show, it was a fun time with Zach Seegers and myself. We went over the terrible, heartbreaking loss against the Chiefs. Yesterday's episode of Altitude Adjustment is up. Audio versions
Hilarious.
are available. Absolutely hilarious. I recommend if you're a YouTube watcher that you go watch the YouTube version of it just to get the full effect of what they were going for. Those guys are hysterical, Mari Vitanzi and Patrick Chiodo. And Joey, I think there's a full field read in our near future.
I believe so. Fridays. So make sure you guys are checking that out. Buff podcast again, probably tomorrow. I would go live with Carter, previewing their next game. I'm stoked about the Buffs, by the way. Please go subscribe to Let's Talk Buffs. Carter and I are kind of unique in that field. We are providing film analysis every single week on there. It's not going over the film, but we're providing thoughts from the film, and we're going position by position, offense versus defense. How did they look? What did the other team even do good? If you guys are into that type of stuff, please go subscribe to Let's Talk Buffs. It's doing well too. So I'm happy with the product we're putting out. Carter's a star. Please go do that.
Carter is a star. We appreciate you, Carter. That's enough praise for me for this evening. We'll catch you post game after the Broncos hopefully beat the Falcons, and then you'll get the trio back on Monday. Maybe if Zach decides to show up. You never know. Go Broncos.